party people.
Hey, party people.
How's everybody doing tonight? You are listening to Sofa Pizza, presented by Dog Bites Girl. Shout out Roy.
Lot Radio.
Here at Lot Radio. Yeah, that is Lewie Kloster. And his brother is right beside him, Noah. My buddy Bird's here. And we're with photographer David Godlis.
All right, let's go.
Who their film was about.
Yes, we just made a film and we're trying to promote the hell out of it. So now we're here on the radio waves.
Lot Radio.
We're trying
Lot
to cook
Radio
our
waves.
dinner on your stove.
Yep.
Started from the bottom. Now we're here at Lot
Now we're here
Radio.
at Lot Radio.
That's what's up, dude.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the film and music and what we loved about making the film, what David loved about taking pictures at CBGBs and everything in between.
And we're gonna center this podcast on the night,
Hell
on the
yeah.
night.
the poetry of a night.
We're doing this at night. What were you photographing before
I was-
CBGBs?
I was photographing everything because I'm a photographer. And then I was photographing especially people on the street during the day because I was walking on the street during the day with my camera. So I take pictures everywhere I go. And then I went out to hear music, which I like to do. And I just got into New York and gotten a job and was looking for some place to hang and meet people. And so I wanted to do that in a place that had live music. And so I kind of looked around and stumbled eventually into CBGB's.
And it just so happened to be this club that had so many musicians that everybody knows and loves today. I mean, just
Yeah, but back then it was just a bar with a batch of people. And then there were bands that went up on stage, and it just happened to be that the bands were also sitting around, hanging around the club after they were off stage. And so it was the perfect place to hear music, but I didn't really think I was going to shoot pictures there.
Something I remember you saying a lot while we were recording was like, you were just like, there was nothing mythic about it. It was just a bar.
Well, you know, it wasn't like I looked for the mythical bar to go hear music in. I looked for a bar that looked comfortable to hear music in, like you do. It's like you go like, where are there going to be cool people, interesting people, and where are you going to hear music when you're not talking or hanging out? When you're hanging out, what do you want to do for the night, right? So it was a bar. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I feel like New York City, out of all the cities, is a perfect place to find a bar for yourself. I mean, like, there's really a bar for everyone here. Like, I mean, our bar is Carmelo's, sure, but like, you find the right bar that fits you, and you happen to find GB.
Yeah, I had a bar in Boston, and I moved to New York. And then when I moved to New York, I went, let's find a bar in New York. And because there wasn't no internet, you had to meet people. You wanted to hear music.
What were the characteristics of the bar that you liked in New York and what were similar to CBGB's?
In Boston, old style. Not like, like when I would come down to New York, the thing New York did, it was like a little bit more she than Boston. Boston was kind of down home. They had bars that were messy. They had, bars that they didn't want to be like fancy New Yorkers. New Yorkers dressed up and Boston people dressed down, and New York, but I went for a place where people dressed down. So I stayed away. And then there were all these bars that at the time they would just call them singles bars, which meant, like they were like meat racks, you'd go in and look for girls who were looking for guys. And I went like, that seems like a pointless activity, especially for me. I'm not like the good looking guy that's going to go in and do that.
Don't say
I just wanted to hear music.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be like distracted with that, even though underneath it, everybody's looking for people to maybe go home with that evening and maybe meet. And at the same time, you're going to hear music and you're going to hang out and talk and interact.
I can say you're not just speaking for yourself right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a human
So
thing.
that's what I was doing. I was looking for that bar. That bar just happened to turn into eventually this legendary bar. But at the time, it was just a bar full of young people that were my age that were trying to make it as bands, and a batch of other people that were hanging around that interesting music. Because when I could go back, I went back to Boston and I'd tell people like that I'm taking pictures in this bar, and they'd go like, of musicians. They go, why are you taking pictures of musicians? And I'd go like, because that wasn't looked at as a thing to do. Even if you went to art school, it wasn't a cool thing to go photograph musicians. That was like, it was a step down from being artistic. But I wasn't really photographing musicians. I was photographing this art scene that was happening because I recognized it as a scene. It was like, Patti Smith. And once I saw Patti Smith in television and the Ramones, I realized these were all kind of art projects. They weren't like just a band doing cover songs, or they were bands that had concepts to succeed in an artistic way with rock and roll music.
I remember one of the stories that you told us that's very similar to that one is like you went home to Boston once after you took a bunch of photos of CBGBs and you showed them your photos. You showed like your photography classmates your photos that you graduated with, and they're like, "Oh, you're photographing musicians?" And you're like, "No, wait. Just wait. Hear me out." And then you spun one of the records by probably Blondie or Television, and then I remember you said, and then once they heard you spinning a record of the musicians you were playing, or the musicians that you were photographing, they went, "Oh my God, you're not just photographing musicians, you're photographing bad musicians."
Yeah, it was like I went from here to there. And then I was going lower and lower, everything I was telling them. Yeah. I played them the Ramones, and they were like, "Oh my God, what the hell's happened to you?"
Well, that could be a really good segue. Why don't you play on the radio a song that one of your Boston friends thought sucked, but you wanted to show off to them? Like, what's one of the songs that you would have played for them that we can play on the radio?
Blitzkrieg Bop.
So, David, I'm going to edit it in later. So now,
right. I mean, it goes with "Hey Ho, Let's Go."
Yeah. I mean, we could do an a cappella version right now if we wanted to.
No, imagine you get the Ramones album, like when it comes out. Like after they, you go like, "Oh my God, this band actually has a record out." And then the record that comes out, the first song is Blitzkrieg Bop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's powerful.
Even the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't Blitzkrieg like a war tactic?
Yeah, it's German.
Yeah, that comes from Dee Dee. Blitzkrieg Bop comes from Dee Dee. And then they were trying to write an anthem like the Bay City Rollers. and so they came up with Blitzkrieg Bop. That was their anthem.
Do you have any specific memories with the Ramones?
Just hearing them for sure is my biggest, memory. The first, I remember standing in CBGB's and the sound in there, which was just great, and their sound, which was so, by the time I saw them, because I didn't see them in 74, I saw them in 76. And by the time I saw them, the sound was so big. And I just remember standing there going like, this is so. I'm looking at the stage from a little ways back and going, this is so fucking good. I can't believe how fucking lucky I am.
Yeah,
to
they
be
were
hearing this
fully
here.
developed at that point.
And that thing that I was thinking was really good, you know, the people I would play it for would go like, oh, that's terrible. But I would stand there at CBGB's and go like, this is unbelievable. And you'd see they played 2 sets a night for 4 nights a weekend. So Thursday, like early set, late set. Friday, early set, late set. And like what I mean early, late, they played like 10 o'clock and 1, 2 in the morning. On Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday. And I went to every one of them.
You know, I know firsthand how some of the neighbors of CBGBs felt, and they fucking hated CBGBs.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Christine Choi, a really good friend of ours, when she was about 28, living in New York City, she lived in a loft above CBGB's, and she's a good friend. And she was like 28 in probably the 80s.
Not in the bum hotel, but
not in the bum hotel. But we talked to her about it. We talked to her about this film that we're making with you, and she goes, "Oh, for fuck's sake, why are you making a film about the place that kept me up every night?"
Wow.
Yeah, she's living in a loft with like kids too. Keep them up. I think people just people have found better outlets to complain these days about sound.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe kept the Bowery clear of anyone living there, you know?
That's true. I mean, but do you think that maybe now the magic of CBGB, like, I like how David refers to it as kind of like a, you know, just some dumpy bar, but to our generation, it is a magical place, and I can see like why you guys would want to do a documentary about it, because the people, the artists who came through there and got their start there are they're special in my life, and I'm sure your guys' life too. So,
there's a motion picture film like made about it.
Yeah, true. What's
it's just called CBGB.
Yeah,
Didn't
really bad movie.
Yeah, it didn't turn out.
It's not that good.
No,
It has its moments.
Dave, did you see that documentary?
I have seen it. Yeah.
It was not. It was like a
film.
Yeah.
It was
It had actors.
It was poorly made. There are some good parts of it because it's got Snape as Hilly Crystal, and
R.I.P.
They needed a Godlis character.
And who plays Patty?
I don't know, but who would you want to play you if you were a character? In that movie?
That's funny. Yeah.
Who would you want?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
No. I'm not Leonardo DiCaprio. You need a Jew. You need a Jew actor.
I was thinking.
You need a really good Jew actor. Maybe Bob Gruen can play me.
Oh,
yeah, Bob Gruen. That's another. Okay, so for the viewers at home, Bob Gruen is another.
That's an inside joke.
Who kind of came up with David?
No, he came up ahead of me. Bob was like already legend by the time I met him.
Legend status. He photographed a lot of.
Like I was like, you know, Bob's like 6 years older than me.
Yeah, but
something like that.
Is Bob Gruen on Lot Radio right now?
No, he's not.
No. But I like, you know, Bob was still, when I met him, I'm like, oh, you're Bob Gruen, you know.
Yeah.
And but
his photos are legendary.
Yeah.
But he's another Jew with curly hair, and so we get, you know, I get mixed up for Bob Gruen because he's the more famous one.
You know, Noah and I are not Jewish, but everyone tells me that I am going to be you. That people see the
glasses
between
and the
me
hair.
And you,
Yeah,
I get that a lot. Have you ever gotten that?
Yeah.
That
Like-
you and I look alike.
Well, I have certain people that people think I am sometimes.
Yeah, I get the kid from Dunkirk, the little the kid who falls down the stairs in
Yeah.
Dunkirk.
I forget his name.
He was in what was that movie?
Killing of a Sacred
Killing
Deer.
of a Sacred Deer.
I get Keanu Reeves, but I'm not bragging.
I see it.
Show your face to Godlis again. There's
Grow your hair, Neo.
Keanu. All right, well,
You're like Neo inside the ship
Exactly.
with the short hair.
I think
it's time to watch the movie because we need to watch the movie sometime this program.
all right.
And we're not going to actually
Let's
cut
play.
that, but
All right, let's play the movie. Let's play the movie in full for all the listeners at home.
Yeah, so they know what we're talking about, and then we can actually
Yeah,
we can talk about the movie.
dive in.
word.
All right.
I never really thought too much about whether this was a good night to go to CBGB's. It was always a good night to go to CBGB's.
So
All
there's a
right,
movie.
there it goes.
Hey.
Wow.
Wow, that was great.
I love that movie, dude.
Thanks.
It always
Ian.
goes by so quickly.
Felt like maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, so you guys put out the movie, and then you guys won some awards for it, obviously.
Well, not really. It got into New York Film
Okay,
Festival, but
you guys got it into the New York.
There's
Film
no
Festival.
winner. There's no winner. And
It
But
it
there's
has
also no
it has accolades, but
sure.
you guys decided to show it to the public. You guys took the movie down to the actual CBGB spot, guerrilla warfare style. You had to like show it on the street, and what made you guys want to actually show it like that?
well, I think first it was kind
Why
of,
not just release it publicly for a little bit?
I think we're used to inviting all of our friends to our screenings
Okay.
and like, you know, seeing who shows up and just kind of shooting it out there. And with the whole COVID epidemic thing or pandemic, what do you call it? And we couldn't invite people to the theater because they weren't doing theater.
Yeah, normally
showings.
we'd have a cool screening at New York Film Festival where you could invite all of our friends.
Mhm.
And then,
But
yeah.
instead, we had to figure out a way to like, how can we still see our friends responsibly and have them see our film and like, you know, see, because like a film premiere is like a great reunion of like all the friends and family that support you or helped you make the film. So we just had to like figure out a way to creatively bypass missing out on that this year. And so what we did was like we devised an idea to bring a bed sheet, a projector, and a speaker down to the Bowery and project the film really loud on the side of the CBGB's like gate storefront. And Noah and I were so nervous beforehand. We thought it was like going to get shut down before we even like strung up the bed sheet or anything.
I remember seeing you guys look kind of nervous.
Yeah. Godlis.
There's a guy
They were
hanging around
sick.
looking sketchy.
They were so nervous.
I know.
It's like there's a million stories in the big city, and this was just one of them.
Yeah, it was.
Nobody was, you know.
It hardly was one of them. Yeah.
But you guys had a turnout. There's probably what, David, like 30 people there.
Yeah. It looked like, you know, not a gigantic night at CBGB's, but a nice night at CBGB's.
It looked like Antifa was gathering together about to fuck shit up in the Bowery.
That's what we're afraid of.
That's what the
yeah.
crowd. I mean, that's what the crowd kind of looked like a little.
a lot of the
Got some bikes there.
a lot of the
handsome,
online
handsome and beautiful, and
Yeah. a lot of the
Yeah,
blogs I was reading to like give me tips about doing outdoor projections, like because I was like researching on how to pull it off and all that. All of the websites and all the blogs were like protest based. They're like, this is how you can show your protest films on the streets without actually doing damage.
Mhm.
So I was definitely afraid of like, you know, the NYPD catching on to a pattern of like every time they see a projection now, it's going to be like protests and then they'll just come by and shut it down. So I was like, that was on my mind too while we were setting it up.
Well, in a way, the film is kind of a protest on modern day life and
Yeah,
how
of course.
how uncool it is.
Of course,
So,
yeah. It's paying a homage to the old music.
It was a great
Better
event.
times.
when nights were long and
Yeah, true.
what is it, David?
Would you go out and kick ass?
It was the first time I'd been out after 9 o'clock in like 6 months. But
But
that was the place that I would stay till 4 in the morning on the
Well-
nights I went out.
Felt right. I think.
Maybe next week we'll have a screening at 2 a.m.
No, nobody will come. I'm not coming for 2 a.m. But that was really fun screening because it was really perfect for that film.
It
The
was
film is
so
perfect.
wholesome.
It was the perfect way. The weather was great. And then because the drive-in screening got delayed, it turned out even more important. That screening.
Well, sticking with the theme of nights, I wanted to ask you, David, what do you think it was just photography or do you think it's just your personality? I mean, you're kind of a guy who's obsessed with the night and what the night has to offer and the mysteries of the shadows of the night.
Are you asking like why do you think I was shooting at night and
well, I
trying
mean,
to
where,
do that?
not just why shooting at night, but where does your fascination with the night come from? Did it like start?
Well, I think film noir was one big thing. You know, like black and white film noirs, which I love watching. And I think that was sort of a thing for everybody that was hanging out there too, because we were hanging out on the Bowery, which wasn't a place to hang out on, but it made you feel almost like you were in like an old 1940s black and white movie.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite picture of yours, David, is the one of
Chris
Roberta holding the phone.
Roberta, yeah.
And it's totally film noir. It looks like a movie, like the shadow on the back.
Because I was trying to do that stuff. I mean, I think everybody at CBGB's, because the film noirs the film noirs influenced everybody that was from the new wave French films, Godard, right? All those people, they were influenced by the new wave films, and then the Sam Fuller films. And then for me, I seemed to, I'd been looking at Bresai's pictures, who was this photographer from Paris in the 1930s, which in the 70s, that was only 40 years before. The pictures I was looking at were in the 70s. I was looking at pictures from the 30s thinking, he's doing cool shit. Maybe I could do that.
Yeah, I remember.
And now, that time period that I photographed is as far away as the time period that I was looking at.
If you could have, would you have made a film about Bresai?
Could I made I would have done something for Bresai, but this was my kind of homage to Bresai.
Right.
I mean, he sort of gave me the idea by looking at his book of pictures, and he was still alive when I was doing those pictures. I thought he was dead. I didn't realize that he was still alive because he did them in the 30s. But it all kind of that was the influence that got me to shoot at night. But then I realized once I started shooting at night that I really like shooting at night. I somehow have like an affinity. My eyes see better at night. Not necessarily when I'm driving. But
I was about to say that's
we kind of took a tumbly drive the other day with me driving. But at night when I'm walking the streets and when I'm shooting, I can see the way things look at night really well. Like when I think that's a good picture to take at night, it always turns out to be. And it almost is like I have some affinity for that type of lighting. That's the street lights lighting up people on the street at night in the city. And so I've learned that's another combo. I seem to have an affinity for it. So I regularly love to do stuff at night.
Well, now I'm trying to think of a song from a film noir movie.
No, I know a song we could play right now.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean it's called After Hours. It's by the Velvet Underground. You know that one? And she's talking about how people look better in the night. And
I love that.
To close the door because the sun's coming up to keep the night rolling and
1, 2,
wherever they are.
If you close the door, the night could last forever. Leave the sun shine out and say hello to never. All the people are dancing and they're having such fun. I wish it could happen to me. But if you close the door, I'd never have to see the day again. If you close the door, the night could last forever. Leave the wine glass out and drink a toast to never. Oh, someday I know someone will look into my eyes and say, hello, you're my very special one. But if you close the door, I'd never have to see the day again. Dog party bars, shiny Cadillac cars, and the people on subways and trains, looking gray in the rain as they stand disarrayed. Oh, but people look well in the dark. And if you close the door, the night could last forever. Leave the sun shine out and say hello to never. All the people are dancing and they're having such fun. I wish it could happen to me. 'cause if you close the door, I'd never have to see the day again. I'd never have to see the day again. Once more, I'd never have to see the day again.
So there we go. There's See No Evil by Television. David, why did you choose that?
Well, I you were asking me something a bit noirish, and plus, Television's the first band I saw when I went down to CBGB's. I never tire of that first album, Marquee Moon.
You just point to your heart too, as if like
whatever.
Not just on your shirt, they're in your heart.
That like is such a classic album. Just about anything off that record is like, perfect. And we didn't play the Venus song, Venus de Milo. Did you said you saw the End of the Century Ramones documentary? Oh, okay. Because in that one, Dee Dee talks about television. Oh yeah, the Venus de Milo song. It's really funny.
Ramones wish they could play as good as Television.
But but they didn't want to play as good as Television.
I mean,
Johnny would never let them.
there's a point. There's a point to why they didn't play so.
Johnny
But
liked to
everybody
stick with
loved-
3 chords.
Television were a little bit more, you know, people would go like, oh, maybe they're a little bit too good, and maybe they're a little bit too much like the Grateful Dead a little bit, but they really weren't. But there's a great line at the beginning of Venus, which is the Venus de Milo song, which is tight toy nights, streets so bright, the world was so thin between my bones and skin, which is just, for me, that's just me standing in the city, you know, experience in the city back in 1976. It was just like, when I listen to that song, I can so remember what it felt like to stand on the street at night.
Why don't we play that one
That's
too?
so awesome.
Should
I
we
love
play that one right now.
Yeah,
Is
let's
that-
listen to that.
All right. I feel like maybe we
It's,
should.
it's maybe the best television song except for Little Johnny Jewel.
It's
Oh,
a tight toy night.
Little Johnny.
Yeah.
Little Johnny.
Streets so bright.
Maybe we should.
That's
just have
it.
Maybe we should have Louis cover it.
I love
instead of-
that song.
Was a tight toy night, streets so bright. The world was so thin between my bones and skin. There stood another person who was a little surprised to be face to face with a world so alive. How I felt. Did you feel low? Nah. I fell right into the arms. Venus Milo. You know it's all like some new kind of drug. My senses are sharp and my hands are like gloves. Broadway looks so medieval. It seemed to flap like little pages, and I fell sideways laughing with a friend from many stages. How we felt. Did you feel low? Not at all. I fell right into the arms. Venus de Milo. Suddenly, my eyes were so soft and shaky. Oh, I knew there was pain, but pain is not aching. Then Richie said, "Hey man, let's dress up like cops. Think of what we could do. Something." It said you better not, and I fell. Did you feel low? Nah. I stood up, walked out the arms. Venus de Milo.
I walked into CBGB's and I heard that, and I went, these guys are Velvet Underground fans. I went like, they definitely are Velvet Underground fans. Just the way those guitars are playing.
Wait, so
There-
you guys said you had Dee Dee Ramone as his
We-
sister as a Uber driver.
Yeah, at the Florida Film Festival.
She loves movies and she happens to live in Orlando.
This really is his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she
And-
drives for the festival. So
I thought you were gonna say, and she drives just like Dee Dee did.
and
He was horrible.
Believe it or not,
no, I mean, and she had the accent, the not Fort,
Forest Hills
Forest
accent,
Hills.
Queens,
Oh, wow.
Queen's accent. She sounded.
and she
sounded
looked
like she sounded like Dee Dee,
and
like,
she looked just like him.
and she
too.
looked like a female.
Wow.
Yeah, and
How did you guys put it together?
Well, the director of the festival knows that we're kind of punks, and he kind of nudged us once, and he's just like, "Hey, if you get lucky enough, maybe Dee Dee Ramone's sister will drive you to one of the events." And we go, "Yeah, right." And he's like, "No, she lives in Orlando and loves working for the festival every year. Keep an eye out." And so we got in the car with
and
Bob.
and she was so happy that we loved the Ramones and that we loved her brother and that she doesn't meet many people in Orlando that like the Ramones.
Yeah,
which
because they're all like what? 80?
they all just are into Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, they love Mickey. Oh, I want to get into So I mean, this is being presented by Dog Bites Girl,
Yep.
and people get a lot. David, people get a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of commentary on the dog crap photo in the film.
Yeah.
What happened in that? You just went downstairs and there was just dog poop, and there was a dog right there. Or what
Yeah. I was going. Well, you go downstairs at CBGB's to go to the bathroom, not to like the dog did, but there's a men's room and a ladies' room there, or. And I was going down this.
Obviously, the dog took a note from the humans.
The dog knew what he was doing. Yeah.
It was the basement, basically, and I went down this. I was going down the steps, and because I was trying to document everything that was going on there, I took a pause and said, "I think I should get a picture of this." The dog was right in the midst of taking a shit, and
you got a perfect
Yeah.
photo
And-
of that dog crap. How did you get that?
because I'm
There's
a
probably
good
no
phot-
light. I know you're a damn good photographer.
I
There's probably
know
no
when
light down
something.
there.
I know when something, like it says in the documentary. You got to know when to click. And I was walking down there, even though I had to pee. I stopped. I took the picture like a good photographer. Then I went to the bathroom afterwards. And then, yeah, you got to get that picture. You got to, if
That's
you're at war,
commitment.
you got to do what you got to do. If you got to get the picture. And so then, sort of later, people would go like, why do you have this picture of a dog taking a shit? And
Why
said, well,
don't I have a picture of a dog taking a shit?
Well, at one point, maybe 10 years later, somebody was doing a documentary and they said, everybody talks about how the dog shit all over CBGB's. You wouldn't have a picture of that. And I said, I do.
You caught that photo of the dog and you're always ready to take a picture. Can you ever relax in any situation, guys?
No,
Or are you
it's too-
constantly looking for the
That's
photo?
Well, that's what photographers kind of do. It's
Mhm.
terrible when photographers are with photographers. They're all taking pictures of each other because nobody can put down a camera.
Mm-hmm.
I can relax. I can quell it.
No, because even at the showing at CBGB's, that you were taking photos of the moment. It was great, but I guess it's the curse. I mean, you
Yeah.
love what you do. And
Yeah,
comedians say too. I'm no comedian, but comedians say that they're constantly in a bit, they're
we just
always
love
joking.
comedy. We
Yeah,
just love
we
comedy.
just love comedy.
Shane's been making me giggle.
yeah. Yeah, I'm like a stand-up photographer.
You're a stand-up guy.
I'm like a stand-up comedian.
Yep.
That's what I do. I'm a stand-up photographer.
Yeah. Have you ever taken a picture sitting down, David?
Oh yeah. I've taken a picture I've taken a picture of my toes lying down.
Oh yeah. I remember that episode. No, I was gonna say something about how some of my favorite photos of you are of you taking a picture, because
Right.
I love taking pictures of you when you're taking a picture of me, because it's such an iconic stance that you take. It's so
Yeah. Well, look at the poster of Blow Up.
yeah
right?
yeah.
I mean, that scene in Blow Up, he's doing the whole fashion thing where he's has the camera, and that I'm not good at. I'm not good at pretending to be a photographer. Yes, get to the left. Yes, beautiful, perfect. Yes.
Yeah. And
Gorgeous,
he's
yes.
sitting on her.
Yeah, I feel like
That
every
would
time
not fly today.
Yeah, I
That's
feel like
Verushka.
Well,
No.
that movie
I
would
was-
not fly today.
I was
but
gonna
whatever.
say, David. I feel like every time I see you taking a picture, yeah, you do have a woman between your legs.
Oh yeah. No, I've got friends that shoot like that, but I'm not that type. you
They're
know?
no longer in the business.
Yeah, they've all been canceled.
I've got there's a lot of weird photographers. I got a friend, he was a fashion photographer just like that, and then he went on and became a war photographer.
Wow.
Because fashion was too much trouble for him because he kept getting in trouble with all the women.
Because love is a battlefield. Maybe we
It
should
is.
play that.
Oh
too.
yeah.
No.
He was so he wanted to get the smut off his name, so he went into battle. That's
I
true
said-
valor.
I said to him, you're safer at war. He'd go to like really to the hot zones, and I'd go like, man, you are safer, because I went and visited him in France, and his phone machine was just clogged up with girls like, oh Stanley,
nice.
you have to get me those pictures. Oh Stan, I go like, man, you are in trouble. Too many girls you gotta please.
Got,
Say
Go
about
off
French girls.
someplace.
Godlis,
Yeah,
is there a form of photography that you just find kind of boring, or something that you're just like, what is it?
Well, they have it in the documentary, still life. I'm not good at that. I need real people.
Mm-hmm.
I like photographing real people doing real things.
Yeah,
But objects, I'm not good at objects.
blenders and toasters aren't your.
Well,
thing.
yeah, I like that part where I'm too boring. He's making it
Yeah.
make it boring, make it boring.
That's funny. It's
Yeah.
straight out of a movie. It's like, I hate this job that I'm doing, and then you stumble upon this bar, and it's got interesting people and music, and it's freedom almost. And
It was really, literally. I would work from like 9 to 5 or 6 or however long that would stretch, and then I'd go home, take a quick nap for like a half hour, go out and get a slice of pizza, and go down to CBGB's.
Pizza.
Nice.
And then I'd be out for the night, and then I'd get home at 4 a.m. and go home and go to sleep, wake up the next morning and go to work. And it was, it was that day after day after day. But I wasn't going to miss, the night.
yeah,
And I was young. I could get to the job and do whatever I had to do. Though my boss could see I was a little bit worn out. But
yeah, I
well,
mean, but if you're just
he wasn't
taking
paying me
pictures-
that much.
Yeah, if you're just taking pictures of blenders and stuff, there you don't really need to be
Yeah,
awake.
you could be half asleep for that.
Yeah, when you're young, you can do that stuff. And then I'd have to, and back then I'd have to go in the dark room and print the pictures. And then when,
that's so funny. I have so many stories of me going out the night before work and just coming in looking like shit. One time at work, Bird saw me. I used to work with Bird. I slept on the bathroom floor for like 2 hours because I was so hungover.
I think that's the night after.
In the morning?
Yeah, the next morning.
yeah.
Yeah. And I can't believe that you could actually muster up the energy to, I don't know, shoot
would-
photos and stuff, like hold a
I was-
camera straight.
I was
Shane, that's epic.
Well, I've had chefs come up to me and be like, "Don't mess this up for me, or I'll cut your balls off." Like,
Oh my
shit like
god!
that.
Did you lock the door when you went to the bathroom to take a nap? or-
There's a photo of that.
Oh.
I look awful, man.
We'll have to play it because there's a visual
We can
component.
put it. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
put it on.
I remember.
I was working though, and I had to be in there earlier than he did, or something like that. And we both had the same thing. So
Yeah, and you didn't nap on the floor.
I worked hard.
Nah, I got hungry. I was hungry.
We
Yeah.
were living at night.
We
and,
love living in the night.
Well, Noah and I, we can make our own hours, and we do noon to 8 p.m. or
So
sometimes later, maybe 11 to 8 sometimes, but mostly noon to 8 is like our hours that we work.
But that's living in New York City, though. You know, it's about the night,
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate enough to have our own.
of course.
Hours.
Build our own hour.
That's great.
Schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do.
yeah, I think a lot of people move here for the nightlife.
I mean, it's
I
about
did,
it's
for
about
sure.
partying, seeing live acts, drinking.
Yeah, I think it was live music for sure for me.
Yeah,
Well,
getting your shit done too.
David,
but-
what I don't know if you would even begin to have an answer to this, but where do you think our generation's CBGB is?
I am so far away from knowing that.
I don't
how
even
would I?
know
How would I even know? I don't know where.
Well, the thing is that our generation, we won't know until later.
Yeah, true.
So maybe someone who's experienced seeing their regular bar becoming a legendary spot, you might have a better idea. But I don't know.
I always kind of like to think that our bar, Carmelo's, might be written up. A lot of cool people hang out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's huge circles. Like
First time I ever met
Pro
you guys was
skaters.
there. Yeah.
yeah,
That's where we met.
yeah, and I'm pro skater.
Skaters, just
There's a lot of
skaters,
skateboarders
yeah.
there.
Any skater.
lot of
But I
skateboarders
think
hang
there's a
out
lot
too.
of circles that hang out there, and I always run into people like you guys are definitely like a circle I see there, and
Yeah.
then there's like Sergio Sebastian circle, and then like there's a Pratt circle.
Yeah.
And then,
I think we should start focusing back on.
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
David, what's the weirdest band that you would see regularly at CBGB's?
You know, the idea of the no wave scene, which happened around 78 into 79, which was Teenage Jesus and the Jerks and the
James
Contortions.
Yeah.
James Chance and the Contortions, and the whole, which I sort of got drawn by around to photograph. They'd play CBGBs, but they'd be like, their goal was to make everybody run to the back of CBGBs, you know, once they got on stage. Like if they could have, like, if everybody who was hanging out in CBGBs got as far away from the stage because thinking this band is so terrible. Because their concept was to go from 3 chords, you know, fuck the punks with 3 chords, we're going down to 2 chords. And and they'd get up and people would just go in the other end of the place, you know, like I'm not listening to this shit.
And would that mean it was mission accomplished? For
Yes, absolutely. Arto Lindsay with DNA, and that was all kind of based on Suicide a little bit, because Suicide,
Bird loves Suicide.
I you know, the first time I saw them, and I was photographing them, I was near the front of the stage, and Alan Vega had like a big gigantic chain around his neck that he then took out and started swinging like this, you know, at the front of the stage. And I was close enough for that chain to hit me, you know, but being the good photographer, I maintained my position going, I hope he doesn't hit me, you know. And when you look through the camera, you kind of feel safe. And
The war photographer.
Yeah.
and so it was kind of based on Suicide, which people were like, you know, also very much, let's get over to that end of the room. Unless you became a Suicide fan, and you would eventually become a Suicide fan and eventually become a Teenage Jesus fan and go like, now I'm in the front of the room watching all the people go to the back of the room, you know, so you're part of the gang. But when, after the show with Suicide, and Alan Vagan was swinging that chain and he never did hit me, and then he came off and it was like the sweetest, nicest guy in the world when I met him afterwards. I'm like, oh,
Punks are always
because I thought he was going to hit me. I thought I was watching a horror movie and I was going to get smashed. I said, I don't know who the fuck this guy is.
And this was 78, 79.
No, that Suicide was earlier. Suicide was
okay.
77.
So
And they came in earlier than all the other bands. But
the
Go
film
ahead.
pretty much goes into like to the start of the 80s and then, you know, lights out this and that.
Yeah.
But CBGBs did continue on, correct?
yes, that was the amazing
with more
thing.
hardcore punk.
It had hardcore after us. It eventually had Sonic Youth.
Yes. Did you
it-
stick around for any of the hardcore acts? Like
I
Bad
would go
Brains Are
there-
Coming to Town?
I would go there like it was my regular bar, but I wouldn't go there all the time because once there were some other there were no clubs to go to besides CBGBs and Max's between 76 and 79.
Okay.
There was only 2 clubs. Maybe there was something else here or there, but the both Hilly and the Max's people had it so that if you tried to if another club tried to open, there weren't enough people to go listen to the music for them to let another club open. So they kind of had a monopoly, and they were like, you know, they kept it between themselves for those years. And then all of a sudden there were a lot more people, and somebody broke the chain like the Mud Club. And then all of a sudden clubs were everywhere and there was no more monopoly. And so then not as many people were going to CBGBs because people were going to other clubs. Oh, that's a new club. Oh, that's a new club. And the hardcore kind of took over CBGBs while the more modern bands would go over to the Mud Club or something.
And then we're
so-
talking kids
and
and
so-
stuff.
But really, I thought I'm photographing this club, and there was never really a club that stuck around more than like 3-4 years because it would burn out. And, the way the nature of clubs was they'd close down. And I'd go, I'll have pictures of CBGBs. They'll close. And then people will want pictures of CBGBs. And then it stayed open for like 20 years, 30 years. I'm going like, oh, it's not gone, You couldn't get the early pictures, but I had the early pictures, but it never went, So
in a sense, it's still not gone because, it's inspired us to make this film. And then it's like still on T-shirts everywhere and hoodies everywhere. I mean,
Kids
the
growing up,
Palladium,
too.
it's not like people are making films about the Palladium. There's no Alan Rickman film about the Palladium,
No, it was the bands and what was happening there. It just was a very creative burst in New York at a time nobody expected it. And also at a time in the 70s when everything had the 60s had wound down, and the 70s, early 70s, 71, 72, 73 were just starting to get really boring. And you hear it in the documentary when I talk about the different bands. It was just bland and mellow, that when Olivia Newton-John had that song, have you ever been mellow?
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to get mellow like they'd taken a lot of drugs and now they're mellow, and shit was falling apart, and there were people walking around the streets of New York that were like speed freaks left over from the 60s who'd taken too many drugs and were burned out, and the buildings were falling apart, and everybody was like, who wants to be mellow? It's a mess, and then all of a sudden the Ramones figured out what to do, which they picked up from the Stooges, Iggy, and then all of a sudden everybody went like, oh, okay. And Richard Hell figured out, what do you do? He has a whole thing in his book about how he figured out how to have short hair instead of long hair and what kind of short hair to have. He had sat down and thought about it. He wanted to have short hair that looked like you went out to play when you were a kid, and when you came home and your mother tried to fix your hair and go, your hair's all messed up. He wanted to have the hair that you had just before your mom fixed it up. So that became like the spiked hair look.
Bedhead.
And Richard sat down and figured out what the next hair should be after long hair. He really studied it. And then, the ripped T-shirts. And so all of a sudden, there was this interesting thing going on in the midst of boredom. And, the music had been just terrible for a while. It was just all those one-name bands, Journey, Kansas, I don't know what they
Boston.
were. They were just terrible.
I think
Boston was okay, but
I like
but
Boston.
Boston was okay. They were one guy making. They weren't even a band. They were one guy.
Rush.
But
Skinner.
but the punk stuff was, the punk stuff was just a lot of fresh air. And if you were ready for fresh air, as we all were that hung out there, that was the thing.
I think the key word is boredom. I feel like the best music comes out of a generation that is just bored of what they've grown up listening to. And honestly, like I don't really like our generation's music, and that's because
what kind?
I couldn't really tell you. Like I know like the dreamy stuff that's coming out now. I'm not a fan of it.
The lo-fi.
I really love the old stuff. I think that's why like nothing really good has really come out, in my opinion. I'm not saying there's like it's bad, but it's just not stuff I would still rather go see an older band than go see somebody new.
It's like kids got tired of well-produced songs.
Sure.
So now kids are purposely like making their stuff sound like it came from a cheap tape machine.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But there still is like maybe not a punk scene, but it's something that thrives off the idea of punk. Well, I mean, but that's the stuff that's kind of boring for me. Like when it's been done. Like I've seen people use fake blood on stage and like act like they're being molested on stage out here, like in a backyard. And I'm like, that's not for me. Like I like melody. Like it's
Gigi
call me
Allen
old
stuff.
school. Yeah, like call me old school, but I like the Richard Hell stuff.
Speaking of that, I actually have a song about the nighttime. Speaking of old school stuff,
Let's do it.
This is a Ray Price track called Nightlife. It's originally
You've
written.
been dying to play this.
Oh yeah, it's written by Willie Nelson when he was like probably when he was probably like 16. He wrote it and he sold it to Ray Price, and it's amazing. And they don't record music like this anymore. I mean, like it just is silky smooth, and then not to mention Buddy Emmons on the steel pedal steel guitar.
Yeah.
And he like if you go to the store and go buy a pedal steel that says Emmons on it, based off of this guy, who's like a legendary pedal steel
So
player.
this guy's like the guy.
And he took a lot of risks on this track. I mean, it doesn't sound like regular old
Buddy
country
Cage is
music.
my guy, but
Okay.
That's later, but
let's hear it.
When the evening sun goes down, you will find me hanging round. Oh, the nightlife ain't no good life, but it's my life. Many people just like me, dreaming of old used to be. Oh, the nightlife ain't no good life, but it's my life. Well, listen to the blues they're playing. Yeah, listen to what the blues are saying. Mine is just another scene from the world of broken dreams. Oh, the nightlife ain't no good life, but it's my life. Yeah, when the evening sun goes down, you will find me hanging round. Well, the nightlife ain't no good life, but it's my life. Many people just like me, dreaming of old used to be. Oh, the nightlife ain't no good life, but it's my life. The blues they're playing. Yeah, listen to what the blues are saying. Well, mine is just another scene from the world of broken dreams. Well, the nightlife ain't no good life, but it's my life.
it's almost like part of the job description. I feel like these days. I mean, and also in your day, David, to stay up late and like interact with the different scene of people who are out at night. Because like I feel like scientifically speaking, the brain is more creative at night.
It depends on the person.
It depends on the person, but it's funny. I'm a morning person trapped in a kid's body who has to. I feel like I have to stay up late.
I mean, I'm 13 years old. I need cake and ice cream if I'm going to stay up all night.
Yeah, I feel like I'm 19.
Yeah, it just feels like it's part of the job description as an artist because you gotta. I mean, Noah and I are fighting the stigma of like animators stay inside all day in a dark room at a light board. They do their work, they finish, and then watch maybe some cartoons or anime when they're done. Stay inside, go to bed. But Noah,
That's like purgatory.
yeah, it is. So Noah and I feel like Noah, because like a lot of the people who we know are in the field, they don't make too much of an effort to like go out at night. And in order to like, I feel like be different in our field, we like to go out at night, say what's up, meet some different kinds of folk
and be hungover in the morning.
Yeah.
I think the experience happens at night, though. You know, like a lot of experiences you have, or like at least in my life, happen at night. Like
the ones to take note of, and to let inspire you. Yeah,
so the inspiration comes at night.
I think so.
A lot of the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, wow.
There is a romanticism about running around New York City at night.
Yeah, that's why I did the title of my book.
Right. Yeah. Tell us about that decision.
What's up with what?
Well, I know the older book, the book of punk
okay.
stuff. It was the title was "History is Made at Night."
Okay.
Because it is.
Yeah.
That's when that stuff happens. I didn't come up with that title. That was an old black and white film, but it was a good title for my pictures.
It's magic.
But obviously, you're not talking about like actual history. Well, you're talking more about like what kind of history would you be?
Washington Crest.
I'm talking about like where stuff happened at night. You know, the where the interactions and where the things that happened for everybody happened in that club at night or around New York City at night. You wake up the next day and you go, "What happened last night?" But you don't go like at night, "What happened this morning?"
Yeah, your history was made in the photography form of what happened that night that you forget.
What happened that night is what history is.
Right.
History is just like, my story of what happened that night. Right? I mean, that's
yeah, we're getting pretty heavy.
It is sounds, but really, I'll shut up.
No, I love it.
Going.
I love it.
It's okay. It just seemed like an appropriate title in what you're talking about at nighttime. And then I was just thinking that, you guys aren't, before cable, and before up until about the 1980s, every place in America before cable, their television went off at about 1 a.m. Except I grew up around New York, and we always had television till 4 or 5 a.m. Like the movies went on and on and on. When Eileen, my wife, moved down from Boston, she was just amazed that you could watch movies until 5 in the morning. Like you didn't have to ever turn off the TV, because as a kid she used to sit and stare at the test signal that used to come up on the television and wait for shows to start at 6 in the morning. But in New York they never ended. You had to come to New York to get bagels. People couldn't get them in their hometown. They didn't know what that shit was. Yeah. Now everything that was in New York is everywhere. But one of the big things was to be able to stay up all night and have entertainment, not just in the clubs, but on the television set and on the radio. Everything was going on 24 hours in New York because people loved staying up and doing it.
I have something to say.
All right, go for it.
To tie it back to the nighttime, I think the nighttime is kind of a special time too, because you've had your whole day, of your things you had to do, and the night rolls around. And I feel like we're more open to possibility at night. We're more open to change. We're more ready to roll with the punches, per se.
Yeah, because you have a rigid schedule of what you're going to do during the day.
Yeah, and then once the sun goes down, you kind of feel loose.
Yeah, your brain opens up.
Yeah, your brain opens up, and in New York, you have free reign over the city. I mean, and you can navigate it no matter how intoxicated you are.
David had the the luxury of never having to take the train home.
Really?
Oh, I walked home every night. Yeah.
Right, and that's
CBGB's.
It was like what, 3 blocks?
Well, we all did. We all lived in the East Village
right. Yeah,
because the rent was cheap and the club was close.
Damn, what a poppin'
Are
time!
you still living there? 6 blocks away.
I am, yeah.
yeah, he's
I'm
there
here
right now. He's on St. Mark's Place.
Is that the same apartment that you were living in at the?
It is the same apartment. Rent stabilization.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Now,
So here's the night song for you.
Oh, you were looking for a song?
The ultimate night song is "Visions of Johanna" by Bob Dylan.
All right.
You know
that song?
And I think we got to interrupt and
Yes.
listen to that.
Here's the opening line is, "Ain't it just like the night to play tricks when you're trying to be so quiet?"
Oh, blonde.
We
This is
sit
blonde
here
on blonde on blonde.
Blonde
right?
on blonde. It's the ultimate song. We sit here stranded, though. We're all doing our best to deny it. It's all about like New York City at night, stuck in a loft somewhere.
All right, let's roll it.
Let's fire this
I
up.
love this song, David.
It's the best, right?
Yep.
Ain't it just like the night to play tricks when you're trying to be so quiet? We sit here stranded, though we're all doing our best to deny it. And Louise holds a handful of rain, tempting you to defy it. Lights flicker from the opposite loft. In this room the heat pipes just cough. The country music station plays soft, but there's nothing, really nothing to turn off. Just Louise and her lover so entwined. And these visions of Johanna that conquer my mind. In the empty lot where the ladies play blind man's bluff with the keychain. And the all-night girls, they whisper of escapades out on the D-train. We can hear the night watchman click his flashlight, ask himself if it's him or them that's insane. Louise, she's alright, she's just near. She's delicate and seems like the mirror, but she just makes it all too concise and too clear that Johanna's not here. The ghost of electricity howls in the bones of her face, where these visions of Johanna have not taken my place. The peddler now speaks to the countess who's pretending to care for him, saying, name me someone that's not a parasite, and I'll go out and say a prayer for him. But like Louise always says, you can't look at much, can you, man, as she herself prepares for him. And Madonna, she still has not showed. We see this empty cage now corrode, where her cape of the stage once it flowed. The fiddler, he now steps to the road. He writes everything's been returned which was old. on the back of the fish truck that loads while my conscience explodes. The harmonicas play, the skeleton keys and the rain, and these visions of Johanna are now all that remain.
One thing I really like about your photos, David, is that you took photos of like the regulars and the workers at CBGB rather than, or not rather
The
than,
dog
but
poos.
yeah, and the dog, not just the celebrities. I know there's so many photographers that are kind of obsessed with just taking photos of famous people.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you focus on just the regular Joe Schmo?
Because it was they were just, everybody was just as cool as everybody else in there. Just certain people happen to be in bands. And so if you're going to photograph what the scene is, I photographed, you know, you got to have the bartenders, you got to have the waitresses, you got to have the owner of the club. People were like, why are you photographing this guy in a flannel shirt? I'm going, because he owned the club. And then people just shook their head at me like going, I don't get it. And I go like, okay, well, maybe in 20 years, come back to me and I'll explain to you.
Yeah, but is he in a band too, or what's the deal?
No, because I'd show people pictures. And they go like, oh, look at this. The Stiv Bators from the Dead Boys looks really punk, and Richard Hell looks really punk, and Patti Smith looks really punk, and Hilly's dressed in a flannel shirt. And I go, yeah, he owns the club. And they go like, yeah, but why him? I go, because without him, the club doesn't exist. You know, and then eventually everybody finds out the backstory on Hilly and goes, who's got early pictures of Hilly? Because nobody thought to take pictures of him.
That gives like a double entendre meaning to your book title, History is Made at Night. Because you're, I mean, like you said, you were the only guy who like took a picture of the dog shitting and of Hilly outside, like maintaining the crowds. And you were in a sense documenting history because you took a picture of him because he was the owner. Yeah,
because I was like, you know, I came from sort of I was a photographer, so I came from sort of the history of photography books and what people were doing, like Robert Frank, and, you know, photographing stuff, real life. And so I was photographing the real life around the scene that was happening around Patti Smith and the Ramones and Blondie and Talking Heads, who were all writing about real life because they didn't want to write rock star stuff. They were writing about like real interesting mix of life and literature and film and art.
Right, and he was kind of the god. He was kind of like the god or father figure of the bar.
He was our dad. We were all down there hanging out in the Bowery. It wasn't the safest part of the town to be in, and he made sure we stayed safe. It was like the you know, when you went over somebody's house and there was a cool dad, and like
he was the cool dad on the Bowery.
He was the cool dad who, like, he says, I'll get a place on the Bowery and you can all have your bands down here. It didn't go that way. I mean, that wasn't what his plan was. His plan was to have a country music club, and then you know, television found him and said, how about you let us play? And he said, do you play country music? And they said, yeah. And then they came down and didn't. And then
did Hilly get a lot of shit from like the neighbors or like
he didn't get along well with the upstairs neighbor, the Bowery Hotel.
You know, you're hanging out with the kids, you're putting on the music. Obviously people don't like the crowds. Like I'm sure like he got a lot of shit from people.
Not really at the beginning, because he was like a explorer down at CBGB's, down in the Bowery. Mm-hmm. It was like, nobody would think to put a club down there in those days. It was like, you know, the rest of the city was uptown, and there was this place that was filled with bum hotels and restaurant supply shops in the afternoon, but nobody was going to do business down there. There were gas stations down there, so people could get gas, but there was nothing down there. Yeah. So he was kind of he was the first one to do that, and then
you'd say he's like a pioneer for
That's the word,
nightlife down there.
He was the nightlife. He thought Hilly. It wasn't like he was a genius and thought he's going to open up a punk club. He went down there to do something, and then something else, you know, like the thing that happened wasn't the thing he planned on.
Yeah.
And
But
he
he
just
rolled
was
with it.
smart enough to. He was smart enough to roll with it. Exactly.
I have a quick question. Did Hilly like Bob Dylan?
I have no idea. Hilly made a record. You
Really?
can hear, yeah, there's a
Really?
recording of Hilly, and it's like, it's pretty terrible, but it's, it gives you an idea where he was at, but he had a good heart, and he knew, the Ramones came and he was like, these people are terrible, but I'll let them play. And so I think that he was smart enough to not get in the way of what found him. He was smart enough to open up this place and then roll with it, as you said. And as these interesting bands came in, he realized that, he now had what he wanted, which was a place. It just wasn't a country music place. That's why it was CBGB, was country bluegrass blues and other music for uplifting gourmand, some crazy thing that he had in his mind.
Well, maybe we should play one of Hilly's songs next on the radio.
If you can find it, there is a recording of Hilly's.
All right, if we can find it, we'll play it, and here it is. But if not, we should think of another song.
What does Godlis have on his
Yeah,
list?
Dude, why don't you do that? You can do Talking Heads. They have that. This ain't no CBGB. Life during wartime.
There you go.
There's this interesting quote, like going back to like people looking like punks or dressing up to go out. Who is it? Lee Ronaldo of Sonic Youth.
Yeah, Lee.
Thurston Moore.
No.
Oh, the other guy.
No.
The other guy. He has this quote about seeing Talking Heads for the first time, and he's like, "That's the first band I've ever seen with everyone in the band wearing watches," which I just thought was like an interesting quote. Especially back then too. Just like you imagine all these punk bands coming on, and then you have Talking Heads, and they're like David Byrne being like a nerdy guy or whatever, and
They're dressed well.
yeah, exactly, dressed well.
What an eagle-eyed viewer.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, like, watching old videos, just seeing them play at CBGBs, like, they are all, like, kind of, like, nerdy or, like, casual.
The RISD kids. They're art kids, art nerds.
That was their thing. Yeah.
All right, well, we found Life During War, so let's listen to it.
Son of
thank you, Dog Bites Girl, Nadine, for having us for her block. And it was really special to have Godlis on the show and the Kloster brothers. And, of course, my buddy Bird, who I just knocked his headphones out of. We've been sharing headphones this entire time. It's nice to get out of the basement and at Lot Radio, right?
Boom. Wait, what's happening outside? Oh, wait, it's nighttime.
It's nighttime, baby.
History.
And nighttime's the right time.
Go out and make history right now.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. We should actually end it on something. Play one more song.
One more track?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to end it.
Yeah, Godlis, any last words to end it?
Oh, my God. That's it. Richard Hell's Time.
Richard Hell's Time. All right. You're
let's
listening to Sofa Pizza on the Dog Bites Girl block here on Lot Radio. Thank you for joining us. Bob Quine on guitar.
Time and time again, I knew what I was doing. And time again, it just made things worse. It seems you see the most of what is really true when you're stepping into your hearse. The only time can write a song that's really, really real. The best a man can say is how it's play on him this feel. And no, he only knows as much as time to him reveals. It all at once, like time sublimely silences the wise. I know that if I try, I'm gonna take a fall at once and splatter there between my lies. The only time can write a song that's really, really real. The best a man can say is how it's play on him this feel. And no, he only knows as much as time to him reveals. If we give submission, among our chances there's a chance we can choose. And if uncertainty will give us that permission, then it's impossible to lose.